Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Mark Moyer, author of Win Again, speaker, career coach, and business advisor. And I help athletes, executives, and entrepreneurs reach their fullest potential. What you're going to be hearing in every single episode are conversations with athletes and other sports-related influencers. And we'll be offering you the insight that you need to succeed in life, including advice that will let you jump past your competition, whether it be for a great new job or taking your business to a much, much higher level. Make sure to connect with me on social media at Mark Moyer Coach and go to my website, markmoyer.com, to get access to the tips and strategies that my coaching clients get directly. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email to mark@markmoyer.com and I'll get you going right away. Thanks for joining me today. It's going to be an awesome episode. Now, are you ready to make your mark? Let's do this. Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. My name is Mark Moyer and I'm broadcasting to you live from New York City. And I'm super thrilled to have you on board wherever you're listening. If it's here in New York, anywhere else in the country, or on our great planet, thanks for being here. And I'm super excited because I just finished a conversation with Birden. And JJ is somebody I've known for a little over a year. Super great guy, nice guy. Played in the NFL for 9 seasons. Played with Joe Montana, played with a host of other people. Is doing some great public speaking work now, but is just such a down-to-earth, nice guy with so many great lessons, great ideas, great advice. You really need to listen to this episode. But before you do, make sure you click on the subscribe button wherever it is on your screen. Subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're listening to this or watching it. Make sure you click on that subscribe button. Also go to the website anytime, why am I saying that? I don't know, but it's markmoyer.com. You'll have access to all superb content. If you want to take your business or career to a whole new level, there's great content there. Also, access to my previous episodes of the Make Your Mark podcast are there. But without further delay, you've got to check out this episode. Birden, such a nice guy, extremely talented speaker, former NFL athlete, some great stories about his childhood. Check it out. Happy listening. Hey everyone, welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. My name is Mark Moyer and I'm super duper thrilled to have on board Birden, who's coming to us from Scottsdale, Arizona. Say hello, JJ.
Hey, what's up, Mark? How you doing today?
Oh, I'm absolutely fabulous. I'm here in the big city and we've got, it's been raining here for way too long. And I know that, I'm not sure you're familiar with that, but rain is the thing that comes out of the sky and it lands, gets things wet and cancels baseball games and things like that and gets kids upset and all that stuff.
Unfortunately, I'm from Portland, Oregon, and it rains a lot there. And it was one of the reasons why we moved to Phoenix 10 years ago. So I know what you mean.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, you know, the amazing thing about, I think anyway, living in Arizona is that you've got not just the spectacular weather, but I mean, I think everybody's just kind of healthier there and stuff, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it's something about the sun. You know, the sun puts you in that mood. You feel more energized. You're more active, and it does seem like everybody's about being healthy, living a healthy lifestyle down here.
Yeah, just like here in New York. Oh no, wait, that's not. Anyway, but look, today I want to talk about. I love what you're doing in terms of your speaking career, and I know you've got a business that's thriving, doing well, and you wrote a book. And for those of you who are watching it, it happens to be right here. Look at that! I had the prop.
There it is.
Boom! When opportunity knocks, 8 surefire ways to get the advantage. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to start really about hearing about JJ when JJ was a little mini JJ, and then where did you grow up? Where were you born and raised? And tell me a little bit about, and I love your story. I read the book, so I know the story, but your, emergence into football didn't really happen like a lot of other people's did. So just, if you want to give me the shorter version of the upbringing and we'll go into there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So born and raised in Northeast Portland, my entire family lives up there, and raised by a single parent. My mom, raised my older brother and younger sister. She dropped out of high school when she was a junior, but she was the one that taught me hard work, discipline from day one. She did whatever she could to take care of us. And I can remember at one stage she was a welder. And imagine a woman 5'6", carrying the big boots and the big pads and the big this, big that, in a profession that was dominated by men. But she taught me that, you do whatever it takes to take care of those close to you, and she did that. So, but it's interesting because I didn't really get into athletics until my 10th grade year. I was, the kid in the neighborhood. I loved to race and play ball and do all that, but I hadn't really got involved in organized, sports yet, because my playground was, or my arena was the neighborhood. That's all we did all day. So my sophomore year in high school, I finally started running track and playing football. Loved track and field, and that was really my passion. It wasn't football. It was really track and field. And my senior year at Lake Ridge High School, which a lot of people don't know, I was involved in the busing program, where they bus African-American kids from the inner city to a very affluent, wealthy community high school, which at the time I wasn't happy about when my mom made that decision, but that was the best thing she could have ever done for me. I loved it. I met so many great people, and I had a lot of really nice opportunities out there. So, but yeah, my senior year, I was the number 1 ranked wide receiver in the state, and all the colleges came around and said, 5'9", 133, nope, you can't play Division I. You need to go junior college or go Division III. And for me, Mark, I took it as an insult. I was like, what do you mean I can't play Division I? So right in there, I formed a plan. I said, okay, I'm getting the D1 somehow, and then somehow I'm going to play football. I don't know how, but somehow I'm going to figure this out. And fortunately, I had a really good track season. I was the 2nd-ranked long jumper in the nation, and so I could kind of pick my school. But I picked the University of Oregon because obviously it was close home, but Oregon was the only school, the track team, when they were recruiting me, I said, what do you think about me trying football 1 year? And they were the only school that said, you know what, you come run for the Ducks. We'll do whatever we can to help you walk on it. All the other Pac-10 schools are like, no. Oregon was like, just come run for us. We'll help you out. And that was what I was looking for.
Time out 1 second. I have to ask this. And what the listeners don't necessarily know is that I met JJ about a year or so ago at a conference, and I heard some of these stories, and it's really amazing. But one thing I wanted to ask and I didn't. So how do you wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to try the long jump? Like I'm thinking, I've tried to jump over puddles or whatever hell it is, right? But I mean, we're talking about distances that are, 15, 20, whatever the distance is. It's incredible. Like, so what was it that you said, all right, I'm going to try that instead of, I don't know, the 400-meter hurdles or whatever it is?
I'll tell you exactly. I was the kid who was jumping over everything. I was the kid running through the living room, jumping over the couches, jumping down the stairs. I loved to jump. And I knew that I was given this gift where I had this ability to jump. And I was really fast too. And I always thought sprinting, you're just running a straight line.
Right.
Let's do long jump. Let's do the hurdles. I want obstacles. And so that's how I got into long jumping. And I loved it because it was something about running down that runway, hitting the board and just flying in the air and then boom, hitting the pit,
Wow. And wait, the hurdles thing, what was wrong with that again?
I ran the high hurdles because I liked that there were 10 barriers. There were 10 obstacles. And it was my ability to conquer those 10 obstacles. I just thought sprinting was too easy. You just run fast.
Yeah, no. Well, I agree, especially if you're fast. If you're not, if you're not fast, you're really screwed. But that really defeats the whole purpose of sprinting. But that's great. So Oregon brings you on board with the understanding that, tell you what, we're happy to have you on this track. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So I go there, track scholarship. I run the first year, and then the second season or the track spring, when the football team's doing spring practice, I started sneaking away from the weight room for track and going to look at the football practices because I wanted to evaluate these players. Okay, are they really that much bigger and better than me? And so I sat in the stands at Autzen Stadium and I watched 3 practices, and I thought, after that, I said, okay, I can do this. They're no better than me. I just got to get noticed. So the very next day, I go stand on the field by the goalpost. Now, you're not supposed to be on the field. So I'm standing on the field with the thought that somebody's going to kick me off the field, but they're going to find out why I'm here.
Right.
And at the end of practice, Coach Rich Brooks walks all the way down to the goalpost where I was, and he says, "Birden." He goes, "I know who you are, and I've been watching. You've been watching practice. What are you doing here?" And I said, "Coach, I want to try out." He goes, "Oh, really?" I go, "Coach, I can do this. I'm just sitting there selling them. I can do this." And he says, "Okay, well, come to my office tomorrow. Let's chat about it." And so I go to the office the next day to talk to Rich Brooks. And it was a 30-minute conversation, but I had realized that the track team had already talked to Brooks and said, "If you want to allow him to walk on, we're okay with that." And so Brooks says, "We're going to let you walk on." And he goes, "We're going to give you a shot, give you a try. And if it doesn't work out, no big deal." But all I saw in Mark was opportunity. That was all I wanted, just get my foot in the door.
And you got it. You ran with it. Yeah. So at what point, what was that magical sort of point where you said, "Wait a second, even though I'm 5'9", 133, and then with pads I'm 138 or whatever it was, well, first of all, time out. How did you bulk up or get big? You're not 133 now, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. It was natural growth. I went when I graduated from high school, I went into Oregon. I grew an inch. I was 5'10", and I was about 153, 54. So I automatically put on 20 pounds without even trying.
Well, that works. And so actually, it's funny. I can do that too. Oh wait, that doesn't count anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so you're there, and what was that first moment where you sort of said, "You know what? This could actually work. This could actually, I could be really good here"?
Well, there was two phases to it. The one took place on day one. Day one, I went in there to practice, got my pads, and I was walking down the hall and I saw the depth chart. And the depth chart had 15 wide receivers on it. And I was number 14. So my thought process wasn't, okay, why am I doing this? They're not going to give me a shot. I should just quit now. I was like, how fast can I move up the depth chart? I saw it as a personal challenge because I knew they didn't believe in me. So it was more about proving them wrong. And then 2 weeks later, I got moved up the second string and I was backing up 2 wide receivers. So at that point, I realized that I could actually play college football. Now, do I want to play further? No, I just want to play for 4 years. I want to run track. That's what I want to do. And so that was pretty much the plan, was just keep playing football, but let's excel in track and see if I can go to the Olympics.
But see, you're such a nice guy. You really are. I would be like, okay, I'm number 14. There's 13 guys I got to knock off. I got to either, I don't know, put something in their food. I got to, injure them somehow. But you're like a nice guy. But actually, I would almost look at it. I'm the same way in a sense, but it's almost like when I get in line of a long line of whatever, I get excited when I see lots of people after me, because then I feel like I'm moving up, right? And I would almost think if I was 14 out of 15, yeah, I'm ahead of somebody. I'm on my way. So it's the same sort of idea. That's great.
Yeah.
So you're at Oregon. You do okay there, I think, right? You did pretty well.
Yeah, I did okay. I didn't do great. I did not. Yeah. When you look at my Oregon stats, you would definitely say, and this guy played 9 years in the NFL. I had my senior year, I had 1 touchdown. I had 23 catches. I did not have great stats from the college, my college career at all.
But you knew how to network back then. I know that. So the 88 draft comes along, and what did you think? Did you think you had a shot? Were you told you did? What was going on?
Well, I was told I had a shot. I was told that I was going to get drafted. And I remember when the scouts would come around Oregon, there was a star player there named Anthony Newman, who was our big star player, and he got drafted in the second round. So they would come work him out. And then it was like they were working me out as kind of like a courtesy.
Oh, really?
We're here, we might as well work out this receiver. It just wasn't real convincing. But so I knew that I was kind of on the radar, but I wasn't really convinced because I didn't get an agent. I had all these agents, and I was like, I don't need an agent. And my head coach, Rich Brooks, forced me to use Anthony Newman's agent, and even called the agent and asked him to do him a favor. So he calls me up and says, I'm your agent. I was like, okay, whatever. I'm not getting drafted. So I wasn't convinced to the point where it was a 2-day draft. The first day I went to class, didn't even pay attention to the draft. The second day I was going on my way to class, I wasn't going to pay attention, and my agent had to talk me into staying in my room. So I don't know, Mark. I wasn't the kid who was raised thinking of, I want to be an NFL football player.
Right.
I wasn't it never really crossed my mind. And when I got drafted by Cleveland, 8th round, 216th pick, long shot, even then, I was still thinking about, because I had just qualified for the 1988 Olympic trials in the long jump. So that's what I was thinking of. When Marty Schottenheimer, the head coach for the Browns, is asking me to come out, I'm like, dude, I got to get ready for the Olympics trials. So, but it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't something I expected. I wasn't believing at a point I could play in the NFL at that point.
Well, that's funny. I recently had a couple of guys on the podcast that were they're brothers, and what's interesting about that is that one of them, they both played in the NFL, but one of them sort of always thought of himself as an entrepreneur and a real estate guy. He flipped properties, and he actually just retired this year because he couldn't wait to get into real estate. It wasn't necessarily that he couldn't play anymore. And then his brother is like, all I think about is football all day long. I need to be a football player for the rest of my life. He's all football. And it's really interesting when you see two close brothers that have that sort of different take on things. But it's interesting when you say that too. I love the idea where you're saying, dude, I gotta practice the Olympics. I mean, hey, I'll talk to you eventually. I'll get to Cleveland. Don't worry about it. So tell me what ended up happening on the Olympics side of things.
So this is what happened. So I was drafted, I had to go to the Cleveland Browns rookie camp the next week. And Marty Schottenheimer, you got to come out here. All the rookies are coming out here. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to come out. I'm not going to just not show up. So
right.
When I was leaving, Bill Dillinger, who was the head coach, track coach for Oregon, he says, hey, just promise me this. You won't do any of the drills. Just, stand around, go to the meetings. Don't do any drills because, you're going to win Pac-10s. You got a chance to win nationals. You got a shot for Olympic trials. And I said, Bill, I never get hurt at these things. Don't even worry about it. So I go to Cleveland. Third practice, I tear up my ACL ligament in my left knee. So instantly, track career was over. And that's what crushed me. I wasn't sad that I couldn't play in the NFL. I was sad that I was not going to be able to finish my senior year at Oregon in track and field. And that's what crushed me. But if you've been around me long enough, I'm a positive person. Positive people see the bright side of everything. So it was like, hello, NFL. And that was when my focus became NFL. And when I started really thinking about, okay, can I really do this? And so it was the process of learning, and being on the injured reserve for a whole year with the Cleveland Browns was the year that I realized, okay, I can do this. Now I just need to put my mind to it and go for it.
And look, you did. And as you say, you played for 9 years, and that's a long time in the NFL. People, what's interesting is that I think when people think of, or non-NFL players, the general public, I think their focus is typically on the big names like the Tom Brady's or the Odell Beckham, whatever it might be, right? And they're not necessarily completely focused on the tight end that plays for 2 or 3 years and is very successful, but he's either getting hurt or just is not producing anymore. But the 98%, just a massive percentage of NFL players are gonzo in a couple of years, and it's and what's really amazing is that so many of them retired at such a young age too. And this is something that they've done their whole careers and their whole lives. Their whole lives to be at that point. But in your case, you were able to get 9 solid years in. I know you've played with a lot of great players, but I know you get a lot of attention because of that jersey that's behind you. And for those of you that are listening, he's got, I forgot that guy's name. He played quarterback for a while. Anyway, Joe Montana. And then on the left is your is a much, much cooler jersey, though. It's your jersey, I'm pretty sure. There's a lot of 8s all over it, though, which is kind of interesting. 88, 88, 88. But anyway, But I know you have a great story about Montana. So why don't we tackle that one? Because I love that story. If you don't mind telling it again.
Yeah. Playing with Joe Montana was kind of cool because I believe I was in the 8th grade when Montana was throwing touchdown passes for the Niners and winning Super Bowl. So when we signed Montana, I'm like freaking out because I'm like, this is Joe Montana. And I remember being in the huddle with him like, that's Joe Montana. I was so nervous. But the very first practice play, I learned a lot from this guy right away, the type of player he was. We called X hook, and I'm the X, 12 yards, turn around, curl route. I can do that in my sleep. And so I line up, and I'm like, I get Joe Montana's first pass. Hey, here we go. So I line up, I go up the field, and about 10 yards, he hits me in the back of the head with the ball. And I'm like, Joe, what's up? And he's like, calls me over, he goes, come here, kid. Come here, kid. He goes, I've already read the defense. I know where the hole is. I throw it to a spot before you get there, so I expect you to get your head around faster. And I look at the other wide receiver, Willie Davis, and we look at him, we're like, uh-oh, we're playing with a whole different level of a quarterback because I had never had a quarterback tell me that. Because Joe, the great quarterbacks, and you know who they are, they anticipate, they know where the hole is, so they're busy looking off the safety and they throw it early. But that quick little tip totally changed my game. It made me a better wide receiver by getting faster at the breaks and quicker to be able to find the ball. But I thought after that, Mark, success leaves clues. What else can I learn from this guy? And I watched him like a hawk for 2 years, learning from what made him successful.
No, that's amazing because, a lot of times life throws us opportunities that we don't necessarily anticipate. And this was obviously a great one for you where, in this case here, you're part of a team, which is similar to other people being part of a company. And, someone new may come in that maybe at first, in your case, it was like, holy crap, this is Joe Montana. But there may be other situations where you might be like, oh, here's Joe Blow or, but you never know what you can get from somebody. And I think that's a great lesson and a great story. And so you play there in KC and then you wrap things up in Atlanta, right?
Correct.
So what happened in Atlanta that caused you to kind of say, maybe it's time, or what transpired with all of that?
Yeah. So for me, I was always thinking about life after football. I was always thinking about the transition. I was always planning ahead. I mean, I graduated at Oregon. I made sure I got my degree. I always thought, okay, hey, the NFL is providing an amazing opportunity for me now, but also what about the networking? What about the opportunities afterwards? And quite frankly, I did not think I would play 9 years. When I got year 2, year 3, and I was like, well, players are vested year 4, so let's see if we can make it to year 4. Then it was like, let's see if we can make it year 5. So by the time I got to the 9th year, I was thinking like, okay, here I am, 5'10", 157, one of the smallest players in the NFL. I played 9 years in the NFL, and I'm relatively healthy. I mean, I've had my injuries, but I'm relatively healthy. I could stop now and be able to live a life physically and still be able to do things.
Right.
And at the same time, I had created some really nice relationships in the business world that I was ready to make the transition. So, and also too, so much time in my life had been away from my family. I wanted that time with my wife and my children, and my priorities changed too. So it all kind of came together. And I remember when my last year before I retired, I hurt my knee, so I was recovering and I got healthy. And then my agent called and said, hey, Chicago's calling me and Seattle's calling me. And I said, you know what? I'm done. And it was nice to be able to say that on my own terms. I'm done. Nobody's carrying me off the field. Nobody's going to cut me 3-4 times. I am done.
And that's when your agent said, no, you're not. Wait, no, reconsider. Wait, time out. You're wrong. You're not.
Yeah. It got to the point where I said, I don't want to hear who else calling me. I'm done.
Wow. Well, no, but that's fantastic because, when you say you're done, you're in a position where you also have an idea of what's next. I mean, you've set yourself up. So let's talk about that transition a little bit. What did you start getting into? And then what At what point did you say, wait a second, I can really run my own gig? I'd love to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, this is a good question because I made a mistake right away. I was obsessed with not being a failure business-wise. I heard so many stories of players who blew their money, and I was like, that was not going to be me. So I invested in 6 different companies. Now, I understand, you know this, not all professional football players make a gazillion dollars to where they're financially set automatically. There's a small number. Most of us, we've got to have a plan B. We've got to have a transition. So the money that I made, I invested in 6 companies. And the first mistake I made, Mark, was I spread myself too thin. I was involved in 6 different companies. I couldn't commit to all of them. They were all out of town. I was traveling, and 3 ended up failing, but 3 survived. And 2 are medical-based companies in Kansas City because I connected with some doctors there, and I own I own a durable medical equipment company, 2 physical therapy clinics. And then I was part owner of a fitness equipment company in Atlanta, where I was also the West Coast sales manager. So now, even with 3 businesses, I'm all over the place. I'm traveling, I'm here and there. And I did that for about 10 years. And I think here was the turning point for me. I love working with people, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Owning businesses, dealing with Medicare, dealing with things I couldn't control. No matter how hard I worked, I still was not satisfied, whether it was financially, whether it was the passion, it wasn't there. So I started thinking, now how can I run my own business? How can I be the guy? Because one thing I learned from those 3 businesses, they were all out of state. And I lived in Oregon. So I was constantly on the phone and traveling. And I thought, if you're going to do a business, you need to be there every single day. You need to be hands-on. And so I slowly sold those companies and got involved in direct sales, which I've been doing now for 12 years, which I love because I'm obviously have more control. But it was 5 years ago that I finally got involved in becoming a professional speaker because that was something I always loved to do. When I was in the NFL, as you probably know, athletes have the opportunity to do appearances during the offseason.
Right.
You visit schools, you visit communities, you visit organizations, you talk. And I would always do these because I thought, man, if I could develop the ability to speak in front of people, that's something I could certainly use. And so the speaking was just the right time to launch it. And now, obviously, I've been doing it now as a paid speaker 5 years, and I've written a book, and I absolutely love it. I love what I'm doing now.
Oh, that's amazing. And I always love hearing that, obviously, because I speak quite a bit to people that don't necessarily like what they're doing. So whenever I hear people happy, it's always a treat. Now, with the speaking, the event that I met you at, you gave some great presentations on some of the important things to really consider when you want to become a speaker, and then the topics you should consider, and a few things. But maybe if you could give me or the listeners, 2 or 3 of your sort of favorite tips. If I woke up one day and said, you know what, I want to share with the planet all this knowledge in my head. I want to talk to an audience. What are some of the things I should do first?
The first thing I would probably do is say, you got to decide what is going to be your message. I mean, what's going to be the message that you're sharing with people? What is that? Because you got to know what kind of content, what kind of value you're going to bring to people. So have an idea. What is your message? And then kind of what is your audience? Who's your audience? Are you going to just speak to high schoolers? Are you going to speak only to realtors? Are you going to speak to the corporate? I mean, who is your audience? Who do you want to target? And then the other thing, and this is probably one of the big things I tell people is, I want you to take out a notebook or get your laptop or whatever and just start writing all the different things that have happened in your life. Start writing down the memories, the stories. I said, because we all have the content. But you got to take time to think about what happened to you in your junior high. What were some of the experiences? What happened to you in high school? What happened to you in college? Or just whatever happened to your life. And I say, collect all that content so that when you figure out what your message is and what your audience is, then you can start building whatever that signature keynote is going to be. So those are the 3 tips I give people right away. Obviously, there's more, but I think that's a starting point because I think everybody has content already. They just got to know how to pull that out of them, and I think that's one of the best ways to do it. And to this day, Mark, I still do that. I might be driving down the street and I see something, oh, I remember that story that happened, so I'm writing it down, I put it in my phone. As you know, it's important for us to never run out of content. So there's always that opportunity to do that.
Well, and I'm glad you write it all down, because I do one of those things where I say, oh, I'll remember that tomorrow, and I don't. So, I often wonder how much stuff I've forgotten. And anyway, that's a whole nother story. But those are great tips, obviously. And I think it really, I learned a lot within your book itself too. And I want you to talk for a moment or two about that, because again, I'm holding it up, When Opportunity Knocks. But there were a few separate sections that I really enjoyed, but maybe if you could, we don't need to spend this too much time on this, but if you want to walk through, in your opinion, what are some of the reasons why number one, you should take it. You should chase after an opportunity when it comes, as you say, knocking. But also, what do you think are some of the reasons why people don't do it? What holds people back, do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that was one of the reasons why I wrote it, because I've seen so many people either miss out on opportunities or pursue them or get them, and then not being able to really maintain them, not be able to really maximize them. And a lot of it sometimes has to do with what's in our head. It has to do with our mindset. It has to do with, our belief system. What do we believe in ourselves, and what are we capable of doing? I mean, that's one of the reasons why I was able to play at Oregon. I believed I could play. That was another reason why I was able to play in the NFL when I got the shot. I believed I was able to do it. So with my book, I try to create like a blueprint. If there's something you want, there's something you want to achieve, here's kind of a blueprint. And I always start at the beginning of, okay, we got to understand why you're pursuing what you're pursuing. What is your passion? What is it that's driving you? Because I believe that that's the starting point, because that's the motivation for doing anything. If I work out every day, why do I work out? If I'm a speaker, why am I a speaker? And it's an underlying process we go through where we peel the onion. We have to keep digging and digging until we find that reason. And that's what I encourage people to do. Find out what your why is first. Why are you doing it? Because when the why is strong enough, the process to get there is not a challenge. You'll do whatever it takes. And so I think that's a great place for everybody to start. And then with the book, I'm taking it through, the game plan and understanding the work ethic that's going to be necessary, understanding that you're going to deal with obstacles and challenges and adversity. And those are times for growth and breakthrough. It's just trying to take people through a process, because I think one of the greatest pains in life is woulda, coulda, shoulda. It's regret.
Yeah.
And if I can help people avoid that and follow this plan, then, ultimately I've done my job.
Well, it's funny. I think if you speak to almost every entrepreneur who's running at least a fairly successful business, whenever what's your biggest regret? They'll always say, well, I didn't start doing this 10 years ago, right? They always say, geez, I wish I'd been doing this a long time ago. But, I always like to say, look, there are lots of reasons that sort of conspire against that 10 years ago thing. The fact is you started it when you did, and you're running with it. And that's I'm all about, and I know you are too, I'm all about, like, let's focus on this moment going forward. When I was doing a lot of recruiting and executive search, a lot of times people would say, well, don't you want to ask me about my resume and what I used to do and everything? And I say, well, I don't necessarily care. I care more about what you're going to do going forward. Monday morning at 8 a.m., what's going to happen and what are you going to do with that? And that's what I really try to focus on with people and how they present themselves is, all right, you've got expertise. In your case, JJ, you've got tons of great stories that you can work off of, but that's all part of the foundation for what you're bringing to the table going forward. And that's the important thing. So that's great. Now, one thing I really loved in your book that you mentioned was the whole thing about energy vampires. Mm-hmm. Because you know what? They exist out there. They're quite, they're all over the place. And I've certainly known a few of them myself. What's your, depending on where they are in your life, what's the best way, if someone says to you, JJ, look, it's great that you're a public speaker, but, aren't you going to run out of things to say? You should stop doing that. You should do something else or whatever it might be. How do you completely block it out? Do you listen? What do you do?
What I do is this is what I've done my whole life is that I understand that not everyone's going to agree with your path, your choices, the thing that you do, okay? It's not for them to understand your mission, your direction, your goals. It's for you to understand it and you to believe in it. And that's what I've always tried to focus on, because in different phases of my life, high school, college recruiters come in. You're too small. You shouldn't play Division I. Okay, thank you, but it's not for them to understand my mission and my goal. So that's worked to this day. I remember when I became a speaker and I wrote my book and I had my first keynote. Mark, I called 20 different companies and schools. I got no. I remember getting like 22 no's. I counted them. But that wasn't going to stop me. Maybe they didn't understand who I was and why I was doing it, but eventually they would and others would too. And I would continue to pursue that. So that's what's always helped me. I always tell people, again, it's not for them to understand your journey. It's for you to understand your journey and for you to believe it and you to do whatever it takes to achieve it. And also, obviously, our association. I've always tried to associate with positive people that are going to lift me up, people that are going to make me better, people that are going to challenge me. And like you said, if there's someone around me who's an energy vampire, who's very toxic, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to be around people like that because they can't suck the life out of you.
Well, right. And especially, look, you don't need to invest any time in trying to explain what you're doing and why you're doing that sort of thing. I mean, if they're not for it, they're not for it. And that's the way it goes. And, it sort of also kind of transitions into something else a little bit where I think some people also are worried about, and I see this quite a bit in here with some of my clients and the people I work with, that they worry that they don't know enough to be able to speak to people about it. They worry that, they say, well, look, I'm not an expert in that, or I'm not, I didn't have an amazing career doing that, or I'm not the top most, blah, blah, blah. And I try to say to people, look, if like JJ, if I asked you, gee, what was, in your opinion, the most effective route to run when you've got a quarterback who's a scrambler or something? I'm making this up, but now you might say, well, wait a second. I was more of a down the field receiver. I didn't really do that sort of thing. But you should really talk to blank. Well, then that's kind of But if you said, well, here's what I would do. To me, you are my expert because I know about this much about being a receiver, 0 or whatever, 2%, and you certainly know more than I do. So that you are my expert. So I try to explain to people, look, when you're speaking in any sort of capacity, understand that you're the expert for most of the people in your audience, if not all of them, and be that way. So let me take a step back. When you speak, what do you love talking about? Like, what is your favorite thing to talk to an audience about?
I love talking to the audience about things that I know. I'm speaking from the heart, from personal experience, because as we talked about earlier, there's so many speakers out there. There's so many athletes who are speakers now. And that's why I hone in on my story, my journey, what I've learned, and the principles from that. So it's basically whenever I can speak on something that I am an expert from a personal experience, that's what I like to speak on. And that's why all my content revolves around topics and subject matters that I can speak from the heart. And one thing I might have talked about this at Marcus's event that we were at. I always talked about the whole theory coach and player coach perspective. That was a big deal for us in the NFL because you had coaches who played high school and college, but they never played the NFL. And their coaching style was different. I'm not saying they were bad coaches, but their coaching style was different from the fact that they never actually played in a game. And unless you've been in an NFL game where the speed is so much faster, you don't really totally understand what that's like. Versus the player's coach who they know what it was like. They were out there. And so as a speaker, I try to be who I am. I try not to be some other person, some other expert in a different industry or whatever. And when I speak to companies, I tell them, I will research the company, but I don't do too much because I don't want to pretend I really understand their business model. So I'm very careful about how much I weave into a keynote about a company and how it relates to them, but I always come back to what I know. And then how can this information help the audience I'm speaking to?
Well, thank you for saying that last statement. Thank you. Because one of the things that's been a little sort of whatever issue for me is I've seen a fair amount of athletes speak. And it's one thing to hear their story where they, overcame this, they succeeded at that, they scored the game-winning touchdown, then they got injured, then they did this, and then coach helped them, and then so forth. And then, the end. And everyone stands up and cheers. But then they get back to their desk, their cubicle, and they're kind of like, wait, what am I supposed to do? What's going on? So I think it's just what you said, JJ, is so critical, is that if you've got the stories, but they lead to actual tips and ideas and things that the audience can do to better themselves, however it is, I think that's essential. I'm glad you're doing that, because to me, that's how you can differentiate yourself from, as you said, the gigantic pile of athletes that are out there speaking. And there's a lot of them, right?
I'm glad you said that. That is so important. And I take a lot of pride in that, because, yeah, we got stories and all that, but every time I tell a story, it's always connected to a teaching point. It's always connected to strategy. It's always connected to, actionable steps, something they can take away when they leave, because there's a lot of great storytellers out there, but the really good ones can take that story and connect them to strategies that you can utilize and help you achieve what you're trying to achieve. So I'm glad you said that, because that's so important.
Well, and one other thing that I'm going to give you some credit for here. I'm not, I'm not usually the guy that heaps tons of praise on people, like just for the sake of it. But one thing that stuck out with when we met and so forth is the following. Back when I was a lot younger, in my 20s and so forth, which is a long time ago, everything was black and white back then. Every ball was square. It was really weird. There was no wheels, no fire. It was a long time ago. But I used to collect a lot of memorabilia, like baseball cards, hockey cards, all this kind of stuff, right? And I remember I went to a church basement here in New York City, and they had several people there signing autographs. And I used to go to these things pretty often. In fact, it's funny. There was one time where I went, it was Mickey Mantle was signing there. And I remember distinctly, everybody was free, but he was charging $25. And I was like, who the hell is this guy charging $25 for his autograph? That's insane. So I was like, kind of like, screw you, I'm not going to get it. And I didn't, which of course now they're $1,000 or whatever. So I kind of messed up there. But I remember one of the guys that I met was Brooks Robinson, the third baseman for the Orioles, All-Star and Hall of Famer and so forth. And I remember going up, I was at his table and I had a baseball to sign, and I hand him the baseball. And he looks up at me, he says, well, what's your name? I said, it's Mark. He says, well, Mark, it's great to meet you. And I kind of did one of those, it is? Oh, cool. And then he said, what do you do for a living? What's your, what do you do? And I was kind of like looking behind me, like, who's he talking to? He really cares about what I do? Are you kidding me? And I said, well, right now I just got out of college a little while ago, and I'm now, I'm doing recruiting or whatever it was. But I walked away from there and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he cared, kind of thing. Because I've met a ton of athletes that are like, here you go, here's your autograph, beat it. And to this day, I remember that. I've met hundreds of athletes, but that one time stood out. And what I liked about meeting with you, JJ, was that you were the very same way, where, we were in some of these sessions that we were involved with, but you seemed to anyway, generally care about what other people do. It wasn't like, hey, did you watch me score the game winning, blah, blah, blah. But more so you were like, well, Mark, why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do and the other people that were there. So to me, if it's something that you can do, keep on doing, that's something that I remember, and I will always remember. And I think you'll find that people in your audience or whoever you're meeting with, speaking with, the minute you show, and it doesn't matter if you're an athlete or a senior, like a C-level person in a corporation or anything, the minute you show interest in your conversation partner, they're hooked, and they're hooked for life.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very important. And like you said, there's a lot of athletes who don't understand that because they think it's all about them, whether they're playing or they're retired. And I see it all the time. And even as a player, my perspective was always, it's an honor to be in the NFL. It's a privilege. This is my job. This is how I take care of my family. Just because I do it does not make me better than anybody else. And to this day, I'm constantly on social media chatting with fans and all that. And they're like, man, I can't believe you're talking to us. I'm like, hey, I'm just a regular guy like you, So, but I try to project that in my presentations and afterwards, getting to know people, because it's about building relationships. It's about being authentic and sincere and connecting with people. And you'd be amazed what you find out from people when you just ask questions and listen.
Yes. No. And the other thing is that I've found, so what's something, I was telling this to somebody else the other day, and I thought and the more I thought about it, really makes some sense. I work with athletes, helping them transition after they retire and figure out what to do next. And I've found that with athletes, the biggest hurdle for them is gaining that confidence back that they used to have on the field in their next step. And if you put an athlete, a successful athlete even, in a room full of, quote, executives or professionals wearing suits and so forth, they're intimidated, even though they were the, leading touchdown scorer, the leading blah, 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 goal scorer, whatever. It doesn't matter. They get intimidated. But at the same time, if you put an executive or somebody wearing a suit in a locker room with a bunch of athletes, that person's intimidated. But the minute you figure out how to get rid of that intimidation and just say, look, like I said, we were talking about this earlier, we're all made out of water. We're all made out of stuff, right? Skin and everything else. And that the minute the athlete can talk, just like talk about burgers or talk about anything with the executive and vice versa, then the sky's the limit. And that's something I think a lot of the average sort of sports person out there, they do tend to put athletes up on a pedestal a little bit. And then the athlete sometimes is comfortable there, but sometimes they're not. And they just say, look, dude, I also go to the movies. I also go to the market to get, buy some mac and cheese or whatever it is. So that's good stuff. So I need to talk right now about one other thing that I'm actually especially impressed with you about, and that is your family. You've got 8 kids, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I know the story, but please tell our audience how you, I was going to say how you ended up with 8 kids. So I don't want to hear that.
That's what my wife's always clear. Don't tell, I didn't have 8 kids, So here's the story. So my wife and I have been married almost 29 years.
Wow.
Very, very proud of that, because we know the statistics for pro athletes in the divorce rate.
Yes.
Very proud of that. But my wife and I, we have 3 children. That was kind of our goal. Let's have 3 children. And we have 3 children, Jordan, Dante, and Camille. And about 10 years ago, I unexpectedly got a call from my nephew, Justin, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where my 5 nieces and nephews live. And he's like, hey, there's craziness going on out here. Can you come check on us? So 24 hours later, I fly out to Tulsa to check on my nieces and nephews. And 24 hours later after that, I'm in the courthouse. And the judge is like, hey, we're going to take the 5 nieces and nephews, put them in 5 foster homes. You're the next of kin, so what would you like to do? So you can only imagine what's going through my head. I'm like, well, I just came here to check on them. And like, what do you mean I'm next of kin? But, I did what any smart husband would do as a judge. Let me call my wife first, And what was cool about that was I called my wife, a 5-minute conversation. We were in agreement. Let's take all the children. And we took the children, we gained guardianship, we merged them into our family. That was about 10 years. Yeah, 10 years ago. And yes, it was tough, but it's been one of the more rewarding experiences because we had the opportunity to impact 5 more lives. And I believe those children impact our lives too. So yeah, it's been exciting. Now there's only 2 left in the house. So they're growing up. The youngest, my niece, when we got her, she was 6. She had her last day of high school today. Oh, so don't get me wrong. We're excited about being empty nesters too.
But I think it's going to be, because, it's funny, in my situation, my son's in high school right now, and I have 2 older kids that they're out. And I'm, it's funny because my wife, I think sometimes it's, she may be a little overprotective of my son and all that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, because I work from home, because I coach him in baseball and I'm involved in his life quite a bit, that she always says, Mark, you're the one that's going to be like, you're going to go batshit, whatever, crazy about when he moves out and when he's going to college, that the whole empty nesting. And I said, you're probably right. Like I'm so used to having him around that it's going to be strange. So I don't, it's funny. Some people say, oh, they look forward to it, but I don't know. I do and I don't. So it's
yeah. Well, let me just say this. This is how you know why I'm looking forward to it. So my wife and I, we met at Oregon, and then we got married my 3rd year in the NFL, and we had a honeymoon baby. So I have never spent one-on-one quality time with my wife. We have been raising children ever since. So that's why I said I can't wait to spend that time with my wife because it hasn't happened yet.
Well, time out. Are you, and I actually don't know this, so excuse me for not knowing this. Are you a grandfather yet or not yet?
Oh, good question. My son, Dante, and his wife, Emma, had their first child last Thursday. So we are officially
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah.
But is it weird, though? Don't you feel like when I hear grandfather, I think, oh, gray hair, beard, cane, all that stuff. And it's weird, right?
Isn't it? I mean, I'm thinking of my grandfather, and I'm like, no, I'm more active and more agile. No. And so they're going to call me, I'm Grandpops, and my wife is Nana. So those are names we're going with.
Yeah, the word grand, though, I don't know. I think just Pops would be okay with me or something. Or like just the guy that's going to give me $5 for my birthday or whatever it is. You know, I don't know. Something like that. But, it's funny because just earlier today I was speaking to a fellow a classmate or alumni. I went to Colgate University, and she just graduated last year, and I'm going to be working with her and talking with her. She played hockey there and went to the NCAA final game, like the championship game. So they had a very successful year. But I was talking to her about the fact that she's 22. And I said to her, look, you're going to come back in 20 years, 25 years, 30 years for your reunion, college reunion. And you're going to see that you're actually the same person. You're older. You're the same. Like when I was in college and I'd come home for break and I'd see my dad, and he was like sitting there in his like sort of business casual thing. He was smoking a pipe. He was reading the Wall Street Journal, listening to classical music. And I said, well, I guess that's what I'm going to be doing when I'm 50. But instead, I'm nothing like that. And in fact, earlier this week, I went to go see The Who in concert. And these guys, they're, 74 or whatever they are. And they're up on stage, flying around and playing loud rock and roll. And I was like, that's who I want to be when I'm 75, whatever. That's I love it. Mick Jagger, who's like 1,000 years old and he's still flying around. So anyway, but listen, I want to jump right now because I know we're going to wrap things up in a few minutes, but I have a little segment. It's called Hit Your Mark, and it's just a bunch of little easy questions, piece of cake. But first one, a little softie for you. And the softie is when you played in football, who do you think hit you the hardest? Oh,
well, I got blasted one time by Steve Atwater. Steve Atwater was a safety for the Broncos, 6'3", about 240, and he just clocked me one time coming across the middle. And it was one of those hits where it hurt, but you didn't want him to know it hurt. So I bounced up and, got all, and walked to the huddle. When I got the huddle, I was like, dang, that hurt. That water for sure. Ronnie Lott is a close second, though. I got blasted by him a few times.
Well, I was going to say he'd never done that before. That's not like Ronnie Lott at all. Well, it's funny. It reminds me of like in when you watch a baseball game, in Major League Baseball, a guy gets hit by a pitch, and it's sort of the code that you don't rub it or whatever. And I'm thinking, screw that. If it hurts, I'm rubbing it. I don't care about any damn code, man. When you get hit by a pitch like that. Anyway, so it's funny you should say you didn't want him to see it, but when you get back to the dugout, you're like, oh, if he's not looking, damn it, that hurt. That's great. So I know you live in Arizona, so I'm assuming you have a boat.
Used to. We had one. We finally sold it because it's like as the children got older, we stopped using it. So, but we did have one, yeah.
What do they always say, that the best boat is the one that your friend has or something like that, not you?
Yeah, but what we do now is we just go rent one. I mean, we go rent a pontoon or something that once or twice a year. And that's so much easier because there's no maintenance. You don't have to worry about storing it. So that seems to be working.
Well, what was the name of your boat?
It was a Moomba. It was a Moomba, which was about a 29-footer ski boat.
Yeah.
I was, and it's funny though because growing up in Northeast Portland, I didn't have a boat. This was one of the things I wanted to be able to create as I got older, create opportunities for my children that I didn't get. And it was pretty cool being able to have a boat and take them on the lake and experience them to water sports like that.
Wait, what was the name of the boat?
Oh, you know what? Oh, I see what you're saying. We never named it. It was just Moomba. I don't think we ever named, we never named it. Nobody's ever asked me that. Yeah, it was just Moomba.
You should have named it like 8 is Enough or something like that.
I know. Yeah, because when we had all the children, we were packed in that boat too. Done.
That's great. All right. Next question is, if you had a chance tonight, tomorrow, whatever it was, to have dinner and a drink, whatever, with 3 people, alive or dead, who do you think you'd pick?
Not okay. Let's don't go religion because I think Jesus would be obvious. So we're not going to go religion. So let's go Jesse Owens.
Wow, cool.
Definitely
right.
Jesse Owens. Man, you said 3 people.
All right, how about 103? No, I'm kidding. 3.
Jesse Owens is definitely the one that I've always, being a track guy, I've always admired him as an athlete and a person and what he had to deal with. And the other person I wouldn't mind having a conversation with would be the baseball player. The first African-American baseball player. Who was it
Jackie
again?
Robinson.
Jackie Robinson. Yeah. More because I want to hear the stories, the things that he had to deal with as an athlete during that time. Because I played in the NFL, and I had I've seen some things, but man, it's nothing compared to what he had to deal with, and what motivated him to keep going despite all the obstacles and all the challenges he had to deal with.
You ought to see the movie. There's a movie 42. And that's
I've seen it.
Yeah, that's a great movie. And that's I think that gives you a taste of a lot of what
yeah.
You're absolutely right. I mean, what a brave guy. I mean, the talent was incredible, but the bravery, what he had to go through and how you had to like restrain yourself from, I couldn't do that.
Especially and when I hear athletes complain about certain things today, and I just think about what he had to go through.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't even we can't even really imagine what he had to do with.
I mean, Henry Aaron went through that even 20 years after that when he was breaking Babe Ruth's record, and he had so much hate mail pile up and so forth. So you're absolutely right. That's great. All right, I'm not letting you off the hook. Who's the third one?
I was hoping you were going to let me off the hook. Who would the third one be? Man, let me think. Woman. I don't know. I don't know. I've never thought about that. After now, I already ran against Carl Lewis, so he's my age.
Well, I'll let you chew on that when and I'll tell you that. So a lot of people say things like Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, that kind of thing. Whatever. Other people. I always wonder why people don't say something like Abraham Lincoln or Napoleon or like. I was going to say like Attila the Hun, although that'd probably be a little scary, and he'd probably throw his beer at me or something. I don't know, but there's so many historical figures that I think. I mean, honestly, I think Jesus would be amazing because, I'd be more interested in knowing if he would like just go bowling with me or something like because he obviously spent so much time, doing what he did. Yeah. I'm wondering if was there any point that you like wanted to kick a soccer ball around, like to actually just chill for a little bit? I always wonder, what was the downtime like, or was there any downtime? But anyway, no. Come on, who else? Let's go one more.
If we go history, because you kind of got me thinking a little bit. I was thinking how when I was thinking historical figures, that would be pretty obvious, though, that I would want to talk to Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
That it's like almost like everybody would want to talk to Martin Luther King.
He's probably, by the way, he's the most mentioned out of anybody.
Yeah. But I was trying to think of someone, because it's like when I said with Jesus, okay, that would be obvious. I mean, who would, and then Martin Luther King, that would be obvious too, but I guess it would be, so I was trying to think of a woman though, because there's so many incredible women, historical, even to today. Once we finish this podcast, I will probably think of 5, but there's so many incredible people out there. And I think that's the beauty of the internet today, because now we can Google, we can research, we can learn more about these individuals and what they went through, and a little bit more on their stories.
What about Amelia Earhart? That could be interesting,
Exactly.
Right, there you go. Now you got something to think about.
There you go.
Well, listen, this has been great, JJ. Look, I really appreciate your time. I know that, you're a busy guy. You've got a lot going on with your business, which is fabulous. You've also got, lots of kids and your wife and everything keeps you busy, which look, that's how we thrive, is when we're kept busy and we're fully engaged. Right. So thank you so much for being on the Make Your Mark podcast. You clearly every day are making your mark, and I appreciate that. So thanks for being on board, JJ, and really continued success.
Yeah, thank you too, Mark. It was always a pleasure to meet you a year and a half ago. I'm glad we've kept this up. And you too, keep up the good work, because the content you're sharing, people need it. They need this content so they can move forward in life. So keep up the good work.
Wow, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Well, listen, have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.
All right, buddy. Take care.
See ya. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for joining us today on this episode of Make Your Mark podcast. The goal of the podcast is to help you find ways to make your mark, to succeed in life, and to jump past your competition. Be sure to leave me a review on iTunes and Stitcher, and subscribe to be the first to hear new episodes. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email, mark@markmoyer.com, and I'll get back to you right away. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.